Hello, and welcome back to another episode of CitiesSpeak. I'm your host, Clarence Anthony, CEO and Executive Director of the National League of Cities. CitiesSpeak gives listeners an insider's view of what local leadership in America means today and what they're going through. And it features conversations with government leaders and policy experts regarding the biggest issues and challenges facing America's cities, towns, and villages. I've been looking forward to talking to today's guest for a long time. I am a fan, admire her leadership, her passion for what she's done professionally, and the fact that continues to have impact on America as well as now globally. So you're wondering who is my guest, right? Let me tell you, I am honored to have Angela Williams, who is the CEO of United Way Worldwide, a role where she seems to be everywhere all at once, y'all. Her career stretches across the philanthropic community, government service, faith, and justice. She's also the author of a new book, Perfect for This Moment: Navigating the Age of Chaos. Today, we're so honored to have Angela Williams, the CEO of United Way Worldwide, as our guest on CitiesSpeak. Welcome, Angela.
Thank you, Clarence. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
No, thank you. How are things going for you with all of the uncertainty here in America? How are things at the United Way?
I would say that we are all experiencing a world of unpredictability, but at the same time, we have hope. And we especially have hope for our cities and for our communities, and are looking for ways in which we can have meaningful conversations, forge incredible new partnerships and relationships that really um, allow us to focus on communities and cities, and most importantly, elevating the voices of the people.
Well, thank you for that. And as I've gotten to know you and your career, I think back that of your why, and I want to get you prepared for this why question because it's to me tells the story of journeys of life, right? And so you have a deep and impressive career steeped in advocacy with Easter Seals and justice as a prosecutor in the Civil Rights Division at the National Church Arson Task Force, and so many other experiences. Tell me what called you to this type of work of community service. What was the why you have taken this journey?
My why always has to start with my parents. And Clarence, none of us would be here without our parents.
That's right.
My parents, in particular, were civil rights leaders in out of South Carolina. I was born in South Carolina, but wasn't raised there. My dad was pastor of a church. He also, during his time, was the head of the South Carolina Columbia chapter of the NAACP and in South Carolina. And so they always had this notion of justice and civil rights, and everything you knew that happened during the civil rights era during the 60s, my parents were engaged in it. And so when you grow up with parents like that are looking to create a world where there is fairness, there is equity, there is opportunity, where there is justice for all, then that can't help but be infused in a child's DNA. So when my dad joined the Navy as a chaplain, and we lived primarily in Southern California, and then to the East Coast we moved, I always had this notion of wanting to serve, whether it's from going to church every Sunday, listening to my dad preach, whether it was living on military bases and going to the chapel whether it was myself going into the ROTC program for the Air Force, being commissioned as an officer and serving on active duty for 6.5 years as an Air Force lawyer. Every single step of the way, it was about mission, it was about serving others, and it has always been about what can I do with my skills, my experiences, my abilities to help others, whether it's the nonprofit sector, the federal government sector, corporate sector. I've been there, but that's the through line: service.
It's interesting. I when I used the word called, I had no idea that your father was a pastor because, when ministers talk about their why, um, they use that word all the time that I was called to do this. And
Well,
that
Clarence,
is,
you know I am an ordained minister, right?
I read that too. I was gonna say you were called as well, so you could tell your dad, your family had such an important role in your life experiences and where you are today. Now, you are in this role CEO of the world's largest privately funded nonprofit, United Way Worldwide. What is your vision for United Way, and how does United Way continue to create change in this ever changing environment that we're in?
One of the things that, Clarence, I said earlier this week when about 45 of my colleagues, these were the CEOs of the largest United Ways in our system, and we were together in the US Senate meeting with various senators. We talked about, and I talked about, we have to see people from a humanity and a humanitarian lens. We have to think about the people and not the politics. We have to be rooted and grounded in compassion and caring, and bringing people together and listening, hearing someone and respecting them. And so for United Way, our vision is really one of humanity, ensuring that in every community, every person has an opportunity to thrive. And I dare say that United Way is uniquely positioned to do this work as a backbone organization. United Way operates in the United States in 95% of communities. And then, as a global organization, we operate in 35 countries.
And do you see a through line with the same challenges in worldwide that you see domestically in America?
The answer is yes. I do see a through line and consistencies in terms of how people experience life in their communities. For example, one thing I say is that there are young people in every single country. So when United Way says that we focus on youth opportunity, I guarantee you, no matter where we are, no matter what city, no matter what location we're in, no matter what village, there are young people. And there is work to do to ensure that there's a pathway from cradle to career for young people. Now, the political context in which we operate may be vastly different. And I say that because we are in democratic countries, we are in communist and socialist countries as well. But that doesn't change the very fact that youth need to be educated. Youth need to have a pathway to working and being able to have meaningful jobs that pay decent wages so that they too can take care of their families. Another through line: health, healthy communities. We know that if someone's health is at risk, they don't get the proper treatment for curable diseases or the proper medication, then that really diminishes their abilities in so many different ways. And so to think about how United Way shows up for healthy communities, access to healthcare, information, wraparound services, social services, that's important. And the last thing I would say, because I could go on and on, well, actually, let me say two things. Another thing, community resilience. We know that communities experience disasters all the time around the world. They could be man made disasters or they could be natural disasters, sudden floods, hurricanes, you name it, buildings collapsing, whatever the case may be, school shootings. United Ways show up to work with communities, whether it's raising funds, whether it's delivering services, whether it's providing goods and resources and connecting people. United Way was there before anything ever happened. Our colleagues, my colleagues, are there during the incidents, and we remain in communities afterwards. And that's that continuum of care that United Way offers. And so that's where, no matter where you are in the world, United Way is there. Another example would be when the Ukraine war started. On day one of that war, United Way Romania, our colleagues jumped into the United Way van, crossed and Hungary rather crossed over into to Ukraine and started helping the refugees and bringing the women and children in, giving them the support they need to transfer to other countries or to get legal paperwork and to figure out how to get situated in their moving into a new place and having left behind a world and a family and a community that they knew. So United Way is always in action.
As you were describing the why of United Way and how it is a global organization, and there's so much consistency across the globe, I just started thinking about the ideas that you or the things that you focused on: the youth, the health, the resilience of communities, bringing people together. That's what municipal leaders do. And just I'm going to promote you. You're going to make less money, so I'm just going to forewarn you of that. If you were a mayor, and I am going to anoint you a mayor besides a pastor, Mayor Williams, how would you see yourself working with United Way in your community if you were the mayor of a city today?
Thank you for that. I love being um, put into positions that I don't have to work too hard for or get elected for. So thank you. This is the best possible way of being mayor. So, as mayor of the city of anywhere, I would immediately reach out to my local United Way for the following reasons. One, I would like to sign an MOU with my local United Way for emergency preparedness. I would like to, in that MOU, identify the resources and the capabilities of my local United Way to supplement my emergency preparedness response plan for the city. The second thing as mayor is I want to recognize that 211, which is the health and designated health and human services hotline that covers 95% of communities in the United States and Canada, that takes in 45,000 calls a day from individuals that are looking for support. As mayor, I would promote 211 as a resource, and as mayor, I would be an advocate for local and state and federal funding to support this very, very important and vital health and human services hotline and resource. Additionally, as mayor, I would want to partner with United Way and the 211 system to take the real time live data to use it as a way to predict trends issues that are happening in my community, and to use it as that canary in the mine shaft. And then finally, as mayor, what I would love to do is invite United Way into the table to share with me the data around what we call the asset limited, income constrained, employed individuals in my community. That's data that's promulgated by our colleagues at United Way of New Jersey. They take also census data, and I use that data to create a legislative agenda and to see if there are zoning laws that need to be passed or changed so that we can have more affordable housing. So I would use that data to find out if there are gaps in healthcare needs and what do we need to do with that. I need to take that data and understand what is the average wage of my constituents, but yet what is the cost for food, or are utility bills rising for different reasons, et cetera, and know how to manage that so that I have a community, again, where everyone can thrive.
Well, you got my vote because that
You.
was a very comprehensive concept of thought around how city leaders can connect with their local um, United Way. And it's ironic that a team member and we were talking about a tabletop process to talk through what is the League of Cities role in these type of crises. And this was not even we weren't talking about United Way. We were just having a conversation that what is our role when something happens in municipalities, whether it's a storm or whether it's fire. Um, that just gives me the idea that you and I need to talk about how NLC and United Way work to get those kinds of ideas out there to our leaders because they truly uh, are looking for ways to partner and to put MOUs together that have specific things, not just dreaming, but yet tactical items. And so I really do appreciate that thoughtfulness.
Would you mind if I share some other actual programs in cities that are underway now
Please,
with?
I would love to hear that because we want our municipal officials, and I'd like you to talk a little bit more about 211 program because um, it was important during the pandemic as well. But
Yes.
share with us some of those other ideas that are out there.
Well, thank you for that. So, one idea is that the United Way of Central Alabama is partnering with the Birmingham City School District, to run what is called the High Dosage Tutoring Program. It's high quality tutoring for students who need it most, and the results are outstanding. The students who are participating consistently in this program outperform their peers in reading and math, and the Birmingham City School District now ranks first in mathematics recovery in Alabama and seventh in the nation. Another example is the United Way of the National Capital Area, headquartered in Washington, D.C., but that also services Northern Virginia and a large portion of Maryland. They partner with the District of Columbia government to operate financial empowerment centers. These centers help residents take control of their finances by providing tax assistance, helping to open bank accounts, and offering other financial services. And another example I would give you is out of Chicago. The United Way of Metro Chicago partners with Cook County government on their $15 million neighborhood network initiative to improve quality of life for residents that have faced systemic disadvantages and disinvestment in their communities. And this program is where they invest in affordable housing, cradle to career education, family wraparound services, economic development, business ownership, and arts and culture to bring life back to these communities that have been left behind.
No, I appreciate that because to be able to get those specific examples, other leaders are going that are listening to this is going to contact those mayors, in those communities or those community groups and say, how can we implement these kinds of initiatives with our partners, our local partner, United Way programming. And that's what local leaders do. They try to network at our conferences. They share best practices, um, and they are the best partners to each other, especially during this time.
Well, and I really appreciate that. And one of the things eh, that I found to be so important, and that's why I was so pleased to meet with you and to connect with you, because I know that no one sector has all of the answers nor all of the resources. I also recognize that where the rubber meets the road is literally on city streets. And that's where our mayors, our city councils are so vitally important, those city leaders. That's why we, of course, appreciate the federal government and we appreciate what the federal government provides. And I also recognize that it's important and I appreciate the work of our local leaders, and partnering with them is so incredibly key. And I just don't think enough local leaders think about United Way in a broader way, and don't really understand or appreciate the fact that we are an incredible delivery system and that we are a health and human services system that is hyper locally focused but globally operational. And so, where a local United Way in one community may not have solutions or may not have tackled that particular problem, I guarantee you that there are others in our system that have worked with their local leaders and have come up with pathways for creating solutions for problems and issues in their communities. So that's why I say, come to us, work with us, partner with us. We want to be there. We've been around for 138 years. We're not going anywhere. And so now is the time for us to be intentional about how we work together.
Well, thank you for that, and let me just say that I'm going to make you an honorary mayor for the remainder of this podcast. And now I'm going to bring you back to being CEO of United Way. But you're also an author. And I'm so excited that on October the 28th, I think, you're releasing your new book titled Navigating the Age of Chaos, a sense making guide to a Bonnie world that doesn't make sense.
And do you see this book? It is an incredible book. Yes. And thank you. I'm
Oh,
excited.
okay. So I want one signed to your favorite NLC CEO. That'd be just enough. I can't wait to read it though. Talk to us about first of all, I'm just interested exactly what a Bonnie framework is. And secondly, how this book could help explain the world we live in today as leaders and how we can navigate in this age of chaos. So I'm looking for a lot, but I do need you to help me right now.
Well, first of all, thank you for the plug on the book. We are really excited. I wrote it alongside my co-authors, Jamae Cassio, who really is the thought leader about around this framework, and who is a futurist, as well as Bob Johansson, who is a futurist, and both of these gentlemen are affiliated with the Institute for the Future. And as they began to think about the age and the times in which we find ourselves, there was a recognition that the way people used to talk about the world in which we find ourselves and how to lead in it was the old terminology was the VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And that was even a framework that the military used in terms of its training its leaders. But what we saw was a world interrupted, all of us found ourselves in a world that was interrupted by a virus that was given the name COVID 19, a pandemic, and no one was exempt around the world, or no one was exempt because of their socioeconomic status. That really prompted Jamay to think about and start writing about what is a new framework. And this framework and this book talks about how do we not only look at our current situation, but the in future, about and looking at the future and how we engage in a time of increasing unpredictability. The book offers a lens through which we can identify the various ways in which we present um, and deal with chaos, however it manifests, and how do we lead through it. So, Bonnie, the name of the book, Bonnie, a sense making guide to Bonnie, Bani, says that we live in a brittle, anxious, nonlinear, and incomprehensible time. And because we live in a brittle, anxious, nonlinear, incomprehensible time, how do we individually, how do we as leaders, professionally, how do we as communities react and respond? So, Clarence, do you mind if I just dig in a little bit deeper on each of those aspects of the Bonnie framework?
Please, and that's the reason why we have this podcast, because it gives us the time to really have a conversation. And this is not an interview; this is a conversation. And I think our members would enjoy hearing about what a bond is. So, thank you.
Well, thank you. So, when we talk about the brittleness, that's talking about the fragility of structures. And these are structures or systems that outwardly appear stable, whether it's our healthcare system, whether it's our financial system, and even our education system. So we have a number of different systems that make the world run at a local level, all the way up to a federal or national level. But these systems, as we have seen recently, can shatter under pressure. Global supply chains, for example, can be adversely affected. And so that's what brittle means. Now, when we talk about anxiousness or anxiety, that's where paralysis sets in. And when there's a high level of anxiety, it can actually strangle communities because they're frozen in fear. And that can happen with leaders. That can happen with anybody. Think about what happens with a hurricane when it comes through, or a tornado, or just a school shooting. The anxiety levels go up. And then the N is about being nonlinear. And what we're seeing is that in complex systems, the relationship between cause and effect is no longer straightforward. As human beings, we like to know that the formula is 1 plus 2 equals 3. Unfortunately, we now find ourselves in a world where 1 plus 2 may not equal 3. And I don't mean that literally, I mean that figuratively. I also think about artificial intelligence and how that is disrupting systems. It's disrupting how things get done, and it's not necessarily computing or aligning with the way we as human beings think. And then the last thing is the I, incomprehensibility. I don't know about you, but I've found myself at times saying, I can't believe this happened. I've never seen this before. And that's where things happen and it's impossible to comprehend. And the problems are so enormous and complex that traditional problem solving methods will not help. And so in the book, that's the first part of the book. When you get to the second part of the book, we give you some ways of addressing that. So in a body world where systems are brittle, We talk about how do you make them bendable, and we give examples and case studies. When you are experiencing anxiety as a leader, we talk about how you become more attentive and overcome anxiety. And so, because again, we understand that we live in a nonlinear world, we give examples and keys for how to be neuroflexible. And then finally, when we find ourselves facing something that is so incredibly incomprehensible, we talk about inclusion and what does inclusion look like, and how does it get you past that whole barrier of incomprehensibility.
Yeah, and actually, I don't know if you recognize how you really are speaking to local officials right now, and they are facing a lot of challenges and feeling a sense of anxiety, uh, not having control, looking for partnerships. Um, and as we are in this time with this episode, we also facing a shutdown in America. And they are, in fact, going through the Bonnie process because they really are dealing with anxiety of what's next. And so it's been very helpful for you to go through that because I think that it's going to be something that as our members are listening to this episode of City Speak, they're going to be saying, I see myself in that moment. I see myself imagining what now? But it also makes me think about how does your faith get you through these concepts? How does one faith, yours personally, but how do I get through this moment as the CEO every day, hearing all of these stories from our members saying, what am I to do? What's next? I know it's a loaded question, but I'm just having a conversation with you because I'm learning a lot.
It's a loaded question. It's a real prescient question. And my response would be this, and bringing in my faith, I think for every single leader, you have to start with what anchors you, and what is it that you personally have to hold on to outside of just your intellect, or outside of just your past experiences. Because as smart as you are and as experienced as you are, that's not enough. So for me, I operate from a Christian worldview, and the worldview talks about one, loving your neighbor as yourself. And that's actually a tall order, because to love your neighbor as yourself means that you really do take the time for you to show up in a way that make sure that you're whole, that you're present, that you're able to operate from a spirit of gratitude, thanksgiving, and joy, and have a value system that you can articulate and model and live out. Secondly, as a person at this moment in time, I think it's so easy for us to get caught up into the what ifs and scenario planning, risk mitigation, and not recognize that most of all of the things that you're fearing or you're anticipating, 99.9% of them really actually never happen.
Thank you for
So
that.
it's being more centered, focusing and leaning in on the present, listening, and then I would say being inclusive, which is actually again a part of what we call the Bonnie positive. What I found is that there's something that everybody can contribute, and there's wisdom in the counsel of many. And therefore, being able to bring into the room people that we may disagree with, but finding common ground to focus on a particular issue and bringing all those perspectives together is important. And the last thing I would say, at a moment in time like this, where some communities may be thriving, whereas others in our sphere of influence maybe not so much, coming to the ones that are in a disadvantaged or hurting situation, coming in to say to them, I'm here as your leader to listen, not to be your savior, but to partner with you. And also recognize that the people that find themselves in a disadvantaged or hurting situation more than likely have ideas on what would help them to improve their well-being, and to take that under advisement, to listen and to learn and then to act.
Yeah, that's going to be something that I'm going to reflect on as we uh, go through the rest of this year for sure. But it's very good advice to be able to recognize that you gotta have something that as a foundation to keep yourself going. In the same vein, I know you must reflect on some of your experiences, and I want to bring you back to 1995, and let's go back and ask Angela Williams back then what kind of advice you would give to yourself 30 years ago to say, ah, Angela, this is what you should do or not do. Any advice for you would give to yourself?
Well, you're going to date me. In 1995, you think about what was the favorite song then, or what were you doing? So I had by that time um, begun to transition out of the U.S. military. I was on active duty as an Air Force lawyer and transitioning into the Department of Justice as an assistant U.S. attorney. And so, again, going from one form of government service into another form of government service. What I would tell myself now is that continue to be open to the opportunities that come your way. Secondly, I would tell myself that, okay, you're young, you think you know it all, but not really. So cool your jets just a little bit. And I will just say that, having grown up in the military with my dad being a Navy chaplain and all the successes that he had, and always being around admirals and generals, even as a second lieutenant and a first lieutenant and then a captain in the Air Force, it's like, yeah, I know generals, and we all wear the uniform, and we always all have to put our uniform pants on one leg at a time. And so, general, can I come talk to you because I have an idea for the base? And the generals would laugh at me, but they would listen to me because they knew that at least if I had an idea, I had thought about it, and there was something to it that would be worthwhile listening to. But saying to my 1995-year-old self, you don't always have to tell everything you know or give your opinions to the generals. They don't always have to hear it.
You know what? I think I'm gonna play this episode over and over again at the National League of Cities. I wonder would my employees take Angela Williams' advice here. I look forward to it. But no, that is very helpful. It's always so great to reflect and be thankful and pause. I do that a lot as you get more mature and you think about those things that you would tell yourself then. Um, but you may, even though you thought about it now, you may not even tell yourself that if you really think about it. Because I was free spirited, can take the hill on every project and everything else. But I was like you. I had an opinion too. I always did. I cannot tell you how much this conversation has meant to me. It's meant so much to me that I want to continue it in Salt Lake City at the National League of Cities City Summit, where I have invited you to speak on our main stage. And really, I do want to encourage you to talk about Bonnie and how we're going through this time because our leaders really do need an anchor of some sort during this um, uncertain environment that we're in. And so, Angela, thank you so much for sharing your insights, your wisdom with me and the City Speak audience.
Clarence, thank you for the honor and privilege of being able to spend this time with you and certainly to speak with your audience and those that are connected with you. Because I am absolutely clear. If you didn't get into my message earlier, I am clear that it's all about relationships and it's so important that we get to know each other and work together.
Well, the final thing I'm going to say, Mayor Williams, is this: local leaders, connect with your United Way in your community. It's an invaluable partner that you will be able to get all kind of resources and support, but most of all, recognizing that if we're going to address all the issues in our communities, we need partners and we need to do it as a team. And United Way is a valuable member of the team that you need to put together. Again, thank Angela for being here, and I'd like to thank you all of the City Speak subscribers for listening to us today. Thank you all.
Thanks for listening to City Speak with Clarence Anthony. If you like this show, let us know. Share this episode with your friends and make sure to subscribe. We're curious to hear what you think, what you want more of, and how we can improve. If you have feedback or an idea for a guest you'd like Clarence to sit down with, send us your thoughts at citiespeakpodcast@nlc.org. Join us next month for a new episode. Like and subscribe here or wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time.